The courtroom was hushed when Diddy's calm exterior abruptly broke. When Justin Bieber's name rang out in the room, his jaw tightened, his fists clenched, and everyone in the room could feel the tension rising. You're about to see the precise moment Diddy lost it on the second day of the trial, just after finding out that Justin Bieber had openly stated his support for Cassie. Even the court was astonished by what transpired after security had to intervene. Played a significant role in my decision to say, that's what I want, after witnessing their relationships with Jesus, their wives, and their children. However, I really want to share my story so that, ideally, anyone who finds it moving can. However, individuals tend to take encounters for granted, so it's only a matter of safeguarding those times. Once more, you lean into me. You have a wonderful scent. What is your age? Thank you. What is your age? I am 16 years old. In about 2 weeks, I'll turn 17. At 16, I can't recall ever having such a pleasant scent. That was horrible, like me. Whoa. Take a look at your eyes. Then a lovely. When Hebert turned 15, it seems like Hollywood was eager to practically introduce him. That seems like the appropriate word. It was as though he had to undergo some sort of initiation. I want you to watch this footage of him interacting with Diddy, and I want you to feel really uneasy. Take a listen. Then granted custody of him. He signed to Usher, you know. I was Usher's legal guardian when he recorded his debut album, you know. The first album by Usher. He's with me for the next 48 hours, but I don't actually have legal guardianship of him. Thus, we're going to go all out. Scooter Braun was engaged with Justin Bieber, who was signed by Usher. Suddenly, he finds himself in the hands of Diddy, who is indeed the one. He took on the role of Usher's legal guardian. You can research all of the accusations made against Diddy. In essence, the accusations state that Diddy was a major initiator of Usher. We are realizing that everyone knew as we navigate these cases in Diddy's incarceration. There was no secret about Diddy's actions. It only raises the question of who, knowing what this man was up to, permitted Justin Bieber to be around him. Apparently up to, that's very obvious. The courtroom seemed strangely quiet at the beginning of the second day. Diddy was confident as he entered the room with his pricey legal team. But there was something strange about his eyes if you looked closely. He continued to stare around the room as if he was waiting for someone to suddenly approach him. That morning, security wasn't typical either. In contrast to the customary arrangement for a celebrity trial, they placed more guards close to Diddy's table. There was a guard along the aisle and another right behind his chair. They seemed to have received a hint that anything might go wrong. Everyone's heads turned when Cassie entered. It was a plain black dress with a white collar that she wore. It wasn't ostentatious, but it was a statement. Like bodyguards, her friends surrounded her in a protective circle and escorted her to her seat. The difference was obvious. Diddy has paid security, while Cassie has devoted companions. The portion that's actually fascinating? Diddy was always looking at his phone. With his thumb, he continued to draw it out and scroll. Then each time his face grew darker. His attorney even had to go over and take it from him at one point. I saw Diddy's hand trembling at that point. The prosecution team, meanwhile, was behaving strangely. They continued chatting behind files and exchanged notes. When one prosecutor showed another anything on her iPad, they would both nod as if they had just received the last jigsaw piece. They anticipated a major event. Before the judge even showed in, Diddy's primary attorney made at least 3 attempts to calm him down. He would place his hand on Diddy's shoulder, bend over, and speak into Diddy's ear. Diddy, however, wouldn't have it. Every time, he brushed the man off with such force that the lawyer had to support himself on the table. The judge's face spoke volumes when she entered. She was relaxed yet all business on the first day. She appeared to be a principal who had just learned that the troublemaker was plotting something nefarious today. Diddy's table was the first thing she looked at, and she whispered something to her cashier that caused him to nod and grab his phone. Diddy had seen something on social media minutes before court began, but no one in that room was aware of it yet. Something that would make him utterly frenzied in public. It was too late when his crew attempted to conceal his phone. He had previously seen Justin Bieber's post. You could sense the tension rising with each word as the bailiff summoned everyone to order. The jurors must have sensed it as well since they couldn't stop staring at one another, perplexed by why everyone appeared tense. One jury even requested water, taking the cup with a clearly trembling hand. A vein in Diddy's forehead began to show as he sat there with his knee bouncing beneath the table. Diddy simply moved the legal documents his lawyer kept putting in front of him in an attempt to divert his attention. His breathing was becoming more labored by the minute as he gazed straight ahead. It resembled witnessing someone attempt to contain an explosion. Everyone in the room knew that something was going to happen. Simply put, we had no idea what might trigger him or how severe the situation would be. As everyone awaited the inevitable, the wall clock seemed to be ticking more rapidly. Diddy was on the verge of losing his flawless reputation in front of the whole courtroom. Yes. You know, I simply want to keep her safe. She shouldn't lose it, in my opinion. You know, I don't want her to experience what I experienced. I don't want anyone to experience it. So, certainly, considering how impressionable and young I was, I'm available if she ever needs me. And you know that everyone is constantly complimenting me on how amazing and good I am. It's similar to putting a child in a room with just candy and telling them, I'll be back in 2 days. That's right. All I want is for others to comprehend the psychology of why I could experience difficulties in my life. When the time comes, let's discuss Combs' involvement as a co-defendant in a civil lawsuit that, incidentally, accuses him and this other A-lister of rape. This individual is attacking the case's lawyer once more, demanding that he be punished for allegedly failing to do his duties. As we've discussed previously, a civil lawsuit was filed against Sean Combs on behalf of a Jane Doe who claims that Combs and another celebrity raped her at a home following the Video Music Awards in 2000. This is in reference to Sean Carter, better known as Jay-Z, who is once again criticizing his lawyer Tony Busby and casting doubt on his character. A significant event occurred online when everyone was preoccupied with the courtroom drama. No one anticipated the social media bomb that Justin Bieber delivered. Bieber sent shockwaves through the music business and into that courtroom when he issued a statement in support of Cassie right in the thick of the trial hearings. Because Bieber and Diddy had a long history together, the entire situation was very painful. Do you recall the videos of Bieber attending Diddy's parties as a teenager? Diddy referred to himself as Justin's older brother and mentor. He boasted of having influenced Bieber's career. This public declaration felt like the ultimate betrayal because of that history. This was also no ambiguous message of love and support. Bieber became detailed. He said that he saw Diddy's treatment of Cassie firsthand while attending industry gatherings. At a 2015 after-party, he reported witnessing Diddy take Cassie's arm too forcefully. During interviews, he said, Diddy would interrupt Cassie in the middle of her sentence and speak for her. They weren't hearsay. These were direct observations. The posts went viral during the first court recess. Individuals gathered in clusters in the courthouse corridors, displaying their phones to one another. Before re-entering, a court official had to remind everyone to switch off their electronics. Attorneys could examine screenshots printed by legal assistants. Some jurors, who were obviously aware that something significant had occurred, appeared perplexed by all the murmurs in the hallway. This striking antique photograph that said 1,000 words was included in the post. It featured Bieber and Cassie grinning at a music event from years ago. However, there was something visible in Cassie's eyes. In his caption, Bieber expressed regret for not speaking up sooner and stated he had always admired Cassie's strength. The timing couldn't have been worse for Diddy. Within minutes, that post was viewed by Bieber's 270 million followers. Headlines were already appearing on news websites. Celebrity rumors were no longer the only thing involved. During an ongoing trial, this enormous celebrity with credibility took a definite stance. Court reporters were enraged. To phone her editor, one woman physically rushed out of the courtroom. On her laptop, another was typing furiously. Did you see it? A major network reporter mouthed across the aisle to his colleague. Everyone was aware that this altered the public's perception of this case. One of the bailiffs had to order them to stop whispering because they were getting so noisy. As if they couldn't believe what they were seeing, people continued exhibiting their phones to one another. To see if Diddy knew yet, some people turned to face him. Others saw Cassie, who undo. Heard the disturbance but remained perfectly composed. Bieber's use of particular terminology was what gave his speech its impact. Some of the behaviors I saw years ago deeply troubled me, but I didn't understand the pattern they represented, he said, describing Cassie as courageous and honest. He even mentioned being disappointed in myself for not recognizing the control dynamics that now seem so obvious. Diddy's attorney saw the post first. He immediately tried damage control, physically blocking Diddy's view of another lawyer's phone, whispering urgently to remove all devices from the table. But someone had already showed Diddy the screen. His eyes locked onto it, widened, and in that moment, everyone close enough saw his face transform. It was already too late. 13 years old, and I should mention he was signed by Usher to a label that was owned jointly by both Scooter Braun and Usher, and he was considered Usher's protege. He has been described Usher as his mentor. The Bieber, Justin Bieber, is continuing the purge. He has now moved to, his original mentor. So this is a very big story. And the reason why we should discuss this, and we should not diminish what is happening, it's not celebrity drama. This is actually the fall of Babylon. That we are witnessing Hollywood Babylon. That he did an interview back in 2020 with Zane Lowe. I think this was on Apple Music. And he was speaking about another young artist that was coming up, Billie Eilish and Eilish. And he was basically speaking about how he wanted to protect her because she was now another young person, rising artist in the industry. And sort of out of nowhere, he became quite overcome with emotion. Take a listen. Yeah, I definitely feel protective of her. It was hard for me, that young and being in the industry and not knowing where to turn, and everyone telling me they love me and just turn their back on you in a second. So yeah, it's hard because I want her to know that she can count on me, but at the end of the day, I don't want to. Never gonna force myself to be in relationship with her. Has to be natural, right? So I just kinda, let her do her thing, and if she ever needs me, I'm gonna be here for her. But yeah, just protecting those moments because people take their granted. I'm not even kidding. Watching that clip makes me emotional because he is saying so much without really saying anything. Protect Billie Eilish from what? From her. When Diddy saw Bieber's post, his face changed like someone flipped a switch. First came this look of total shock. His eyes got wide and his mouth actually hung open. Then his eyebrows pulled together as the betrayal hit him. But the scary part was watching that transform into rage. His nostrils flared and his jaw clenched so tight you could practically hear his teeth grinding. A woman sitting 3 rows back later told reporters that Diddy's hands started shaking uncontrollably. He tried to grab some papers his lawyer handed him, but he couldn't even hold them steady. They slipped right through his fingers and scattered on the floor. That's when everyone started staring. The first real warning sign came when Diddy suddenly stood up. It wasn't a normal, I need to stretch stand up. It was abrupt and aggressive. The bailiff, who'd been watching him closely all morning, immediately took a step forward. You could tell this wasn't the bailiff's first rodeo with someone about to lose it in court. Then Diddy said something that people in the front rows could hear clearly. After everything I did for that kid, loyalty means nothing anymore. Then something about consequences that made his lawyer physically grab his arm and yank him back into his seat. The lawyer whispered something urgent in his ear, but Diddy just shook his head. His breathing got heavy and labored like he'd just run upstairs. Court sketches from that moment are honestly disturbing. The artist captured Diddy's expression perfectly. The bulging eyes, the clenched jaw, veins showing in his neck. One sketch artist said she'd never drawn anyone looking so intense in her 12 years covering trials. The prosecutors weren't missing any of this. The lead prosecutor made this subtle hand signal to her assistant, who immediately got up and slipped out the side door. Later, we found out she was telling their team to prepare a specific witness earlier than planned, someone who could speak directly to things Bieber had mentioned in his post. The security guards in the room had this silent conversation with just their eyes. 2 of them shifted positions, moving closer to Diddy's table, without making it obvious. One guard actually unclipped something on his belt, not drawing a weapon, but making sure he could access it quickly if needed. Diddy's whole vibe changed completely. All through the first day and early that morning, he'd been Mr. Cool, sitting up straight, occasionally taking notes, nodding confidently. Now, he looked like a completely different person. He kept fidgeting, running his hand over his face, loosening his tie like it was choking him. Then came the moment that made everything worse. Diddy suddenly slammed his hand on the table, knocking over a water glass that shattered on the floor. As people jumped at the noise, he whispered something that the court reporters sitting nearby clearly heard. I'll make sure he never works in this town again. Neither of them will. His lawyer actually had to wrap an arm around Diddy's shoulders to keep him in his seat. The judge wasn't having any of it. She banged her gavel and called for an immediate 15-minute recess. But that break only gave Diddy more time to stew in his anger as his legal team huddled around him, their faces showing pure panic. Those 15 minutes would prove to be exactly what Diddy didn't need. Time to get even more worked up before Cassie resumed after the recess. Something about Cassie had changed. She walked to the witness stand with her shoulders back and her head high. Instead of staring at the floor like she did on day one, she looked right at the jury members. She didn't try to avoid Diddy's eyes either. She just acted like he wasn't special enough to worry about. Her testimony started with evidence nobody had seen before. The prosecution showed text messages from Diddy to Cassie that made people in the courtroom gasp. In one exchange from 2016, Diddy sent 17 messages in a row demanding to know why she hadn't answered her phone. Another showed him asking for her exact location down to which room she was in at a hotel. "I need to know where you are every minute," one message read. "If you want to maintain your career, that's the bargain." As Cassie explained how Diddy regulated who she could speak to in the industry, the room became so quiet that you could hear the ceiling fans. She testified that he had a list of male artists with whom I was not permitted to speak unless he was present. Among them was Justin Bieber. He advised me not to question him when I questioned why. In front of everyone at the after-party, he took hold of my arm when I did so and muttered that I would regret it. Cassie never faltered or trembled in her speech. She made it apparent that she was being watched, controlled, and segregated. She explained patterns that were exactly the same as those that Bieber had recently posted online. Private threats, public control, and surveillance. She supported his claim with every detail, giving the impression that their stories were well coordinated. Despite testifying that she hadn't spoken to Bieber in years, Cassie's response to the prosecutor's question about why she hadn't come forward sooner was forceful. "No one would believe me," he said. He claimed to have authority over who was employed in this sector and who wasn't. "I saw him make decisions that put people's careers on the line." Two jurors responded visibly. While an older man jotted something down and underlined it 3 times, a woman brushed away her tears. Prosecutors' playback of 2018 hotel security footage was the shocking moment. Cassie was seen in the video attempting to talk to a male performer in a hotel lobby. Then Diddy showed up, wrapped his arm around her, and escorted her out. Diddy instantly leaned over to his lawyer, pointing at the screen and whispering urgently, as the body language perfectly matched what she had just described. Cassie provided incredibly detailed references to particular events, including dates, locations, and other attendees. March 8, 2017 at New York Standard Hotel, and June 22, 2017 at his Miami home. Backstage during the 2018 VMAs on September 12. Diddy's lawyer looked more and more anxious as he hastily went through his notes each time she stated a date. She said that after witnessing Bieber's support, additional witnesses who had been reluctant to speak up were now getting in touch with her attorneys. "I've been getting messages on my phone from people who are ready to share what they saw," she stated. Then Diddy made the utterly uncontrollable statement. According to Cassie's testimony, Diddy grabbed her aside after she spoke to Bieber at an industry party and said, "Even Justin knows what happens to people who cross me." Now that Bieber was openly endorsing her, this threat appeared to be extremely incriminating. You could actually witness Diddy crumble as Cassie went on to testify. Every fresh information related to Bieber's confession caused him to look more anxious, fidget more, and whisper more passionately to his lawyer. The self-assured music magnate was vanishing in front of everyone. And Busby filed an updated complaint weeks after the first one, identifying the claimed participant as the celebrity Jay-Z. They desired their own copy of these videos. And I have previously discussed this with attorneys. Possessing the electronic footage and proof oneself has many benefits, don't you think? It's not necessary to visit the other office every time. The resources are available for your own viewing. It helps you get more ready for your defense. Additionally, Sean Cohn's attorneys contended that, in accordance with federal criminal procedural laws, electronic data held by the government. The defense's move to change the protection order was denied by Judge Subramanian, although this decision was made without prejudice, allowing for a future discussion of the matter. Accordingly, Subramanian's judgment states that even while the government is against giving up the films, they give a defendant a number of choices that would enable them to watch the recordings, get the information they need, and even alter the video. Being that young and working in the field, not knowing where to turn, and having people tell me they love me only to turn their backs on you in an instant, made things difficult for me. I will therefore be there for her if she ever needs me. However, I only want to protect her since I believe that people take encounters for granted. I'd prefer that she not go through what I did. I don't want anyone to experience that. Yes, I'm only a phone call away if she ever needs me. Are you aware of the significance of your story? I'm always looking for any sort of helpful truth when I speak with someone who has experienced this particular kind of thing. I applaud you for getting there and posing the difficult questions and bringing up topics that many are reluctant to discuss or visit because they are exposing. I want people to read my tale and I'm hoping what I'm saying will have an impact. The prosecutor carried a document to the middle of the courtroom just when everyone believed the situation couldn't get much more dramatic. We would like to provide information, Your Honor, that directly refutes Mr. Combs's assertion that Ms. Ventura recently made up these accusations. She took out her tablet and plugged it into the display system in the courtroom. Text messages from 2017 between Cassie and Justin Bieber illuminated the screens around the area. Several jurors leaned forward in their chairs as the prosecution focused on a single exchange. Cassie wrote that she was at a loss for what to do. He keeps an eye on everything. He threatened to make sure I never worked again if I spoke to anyone. This isn't normal, Cass, was Bieber's reply. His actions are not acceptable. You should speak with a helpful person. When those messages showed up, Diddy leaped out of his seat. Everyone jumped when they heard it scraping across the floor. His eyes bulged, and his face was a fiery red. The mogul of composed music had vanished entirely. In an attempt to pull him back down, his lawyer grabbed his arm. Don't do this, Sean, he said in a whisper loud enough to be heard in the front rows. Diddy, though, wasn't paying attention. In fact, he pushed his lawyer's hand away with such force that the man staggered back. Diddy yelled, gesturing to Cassie, this is all lies. You're well aware that's not what actually occurred. Where's your loyalty after everything I did for you? His voice got louder with each word. You're making this all up, both of you. The judge immediately banged her gavel 3 times. Mr. Combs, sit down immediately or I will have you removed. Her voice cut through the chaos like a knife, but Diddy wasn't stopping. 2 security officers moved toward the defense table fast. One positioned himself between Diddy and Cassie while the other approached from behind. Court reporters typed frantically, capturing every word of this unplanned meltdown. The jury watched in total shock. One older woman in the back row actually covered her mouth with her hand. A younger man in the front row leaned away from Diddy, physically distancing himself from the outburst. Your Honor, we need a recess. Diddy's lawyer shouted, trying to regain control of the situation. But Diddy was already turning toward the evidence screen, pointing at the messages. Those are fake. They fabricated those messages. He was gesturing wildly now, his voice echoing off the walls. This is a setup. Justin never said that. The evidence was devastating to Diddy's case. These messages from 5 years ago completely contradicted his claim that Cassie made up allegations to get money or fame. She had been confiding in Bieber about the exact same behavior patterns years before filing any lawsuit. The judge slammed her gavel again. Remove the jury immediately, she ordered the bailiff. As the 12 men and women filed out, most of them couldn't help staring at Diddy, who was still standing and shouting. The security guards moved in, one on each side of him. Sir, you need to calm down now, one said firmly, placing a hand on Diddy's shoulder. For a moment, it looked like Diddy might actually shove the officer too. Instead, he finally fell silent, breathing hard as the reality of what just happened seemed to hit him. The damage was done. The controlled image Diddy had maintained for decades had shattered in front of everyone. And as the security officers stood guard at his sides, the world got to see a very different side of the music mogul, one that made Cassie's allegations suddenly seem far more credible. With the jury safely out of the room, Judge Marlowe didn't hold back. She stood up behind the bench, pointed directly at Diddy, and delivered the smackdown of the century. Mr. Combs, this is a court of law, not a recording studio. You do not control what happens here. Her voice cut through the room like a knife. One more outburst like that and I will hold you in contempt. You'll spend the remainder of this trial in a cell, making appearances only when necessary. She wasn't done. The judge ordered a psychiatric evaluation to be completed before the next day's proceedings. Then she imposed new security protocols. 2 officers would remain within arm's reach of Diddy at all times. His lawyers couldn't even speak to him without an officer present. His phone privileges were completely revoked. Diddy's legal team huddled in the corner of the courtroom like a football team down by 40 points. The head attorney kept shaking his head while another one made frantic calls. A third lawyer was desperately writing notes, occasionally looking up at Diddy with a face that screamed, "We're in trouble." Their body language told the whole story. They knew their case had just taken a massive hit. When the jury came back in, their reactions were impossible to miss. A middle-aged woman in the front row physically shifted her chair slightly away from the defense table. An older man who had been taking detailed notes now sat with his arms crossed, pen untouched. Most telling was juror number 8, a young professional who had smiled in Diddy on day 1, but now wouldn't even look in his direction. Meanwhile, the prosecution team maintained perfect poker faces. But you could tell they were pleased. The lead prosecutor organized her papers calmly, occasionally glancing at Diddy with what looked like satisfaction. Her assistant even had to hide a small smile behind her hand at one point. Security didn't mess around for the rest of the day. 2 officers stood directly behind Diddy's chair, not even pretending to be casual anymore. Another stood at the courtroom door, hand resting on his belt. The message was clear to everyone. They weren't taking any chances with Diddy's behavior. Legal experts sitting in the gallery couldn't contain themselves. A former federal prosecutor whispered to the person next to him, "He just lost right there." Law professors who'd come to observe the case were writing frantically in their notebooks. One defense attorney from another high-profile case shook his head and muttered, "Amateur hour." Through it all, Cassie was a statue of composure. She sat with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap, expression neutral. When Diddy had his outburst, she didn't flinch. Didn't react, didn't give him the satisfaction of showing fear. The contrast couldn't have been more striking. Her complete control versus his total lack of it. As day 2 wrapped up, the difference from the morning was dramatic. Diddy had strutted in like he owned the place. Designer suit crisp, smile confident. Now he shuffled out with his tie loosened, surrounded by lawyers who looked like they'd aged 10 years in one afternoon. His eyes stayed on the floor, avoiding the reporters who packed the hallway. The most revealing moment when Diddy's main lawyer put his hand on his client's back to guide him out. Diddy shrugged it off, just like he had that morning. But this time, it wasn't from confidence. It was from defeat. What we saw in that courtroom wasn't just about evidence. It was about character. Cassie stayed calm and strong while Diddy completely fell apart when Justin Bieber took her side. Their true personalities came out under pressure. Let's be real. The jury watched Diddy lose control and threaten people in open court. That moment probably decided this case already, no matter what other evidence shows up later. The biggest question now? Who else will speak up? Justin Bieber just broke the unspoken celebrity rule of protecting each other. That door is wide open now, and more stars might walk through it against Diddy.